I am a son of God. You can see it. Got it written right there. How many of you would dare say that? That is a question. How does God speak? I'm going to say that God speaks the same way you do. Words. Words come out of God's mouth. Now, how can God have a mouth if he doesn't have a mouth? Mm-hmm. It's be kind of like, how can an angel have a mouth if he doesn't have a mouth? Anyway, that was a little bit of an interruption. But I want you to know that God speaks. God speaks to. Do you understand? God speaks to. Uh, I've got Bibles. I don't have a shortage of Bibles. I mean, there's many. I mean, you can just find a Bible of any sort. And somebody must have left me a voicemail, and that's fine. I hope they did. But I'm making a video right now, and God had some conversation with Adam and Eve. They were the only two people that God had a conversation with in Genesis in chapter 3. That's it. God himself has a conversation with Adam and Eve. You can read it in chapter 3. And if you don't think that God can do anything you can do or I can do, I don't know why you think that. I really don't, because I know for certain that God can do anything that I can do. I do. I'm a son of God. Adam was with God, so was Eve. And if you want to see if Adam and Eve spoke English, you can find it in chapter 3. Now, if you speak another language and you have another book, you're going to find virtually the same thing. They should pretty much agree that God spoke to Adam and he talked to Eve, and he also talked to what is here as the serpent in chapter 3. And the serpent, whatever the serpent is, spoke to Eve. And they had a conversation. Now, the conversation ended. Adam listened to his wife, and God make some statements. If you want to see what God said, seriously, if you want to see what God says, you can turn to Genesis chapter 3 and start at verse 14. And you will find the words that God said. Since I have an English Bible, it's in English. So God spoke the language that they understood. Okay? And then he said something in verse 22. Spoke, he was heard. They heard him speak. Who? Adam and Eve probably, not necessarily, but they could have heard God say these words that I'm reading right here. If Adam and Eve didn't, said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. That's what God said. Now you can deal with it, you can contend with it, you can argue with it, but God said. There is in this book, Bible, that's what it is. A portion of the book is called Hebrews. It's not in the front of the book. It's kind of at the back of the book. This is the front of the book. God, after he spoke long ago to the fathers, he did it by prophets. Prophets spoke. Prophets of God. You want to find out about some prophets? You got a book here with a lot of prophets in it. I mean, a great number of them. It's right here in this book. I mean, you got Ezekiel, you got Jeremiah, you got Isaiah, and a great, many others. And there were other prophets besides these. There were. You can just about say that there's a lot of prophets. Okay, I just want to make sure that you understand that God spoke. And I don't know about many ways. It says in many portions and in many ways. I'm not sure about what that means. But years ago, God spoke. Jesus of Nazareth did the speaking. He was the prophet. And this Jesus is in heaven. And according to Hebrews, or what's written in this book of Hebrews, Jesus is the apostle and high priest of someone's confession. Check it out. God has declared a lot of things, and so has the evil one. Who have you believed? Have you believed God, or have you believed the evil one? That's the end of this for today.